Hi everyone, how's it going? So to give you an update on what's going on with my back and hips, my hips are still being attacked. I still get attacks in my head occasionally, and I still get attacks in my back. So I'm still being attacked, but it's on a lower level than it normally is. So grateful for that at least, even though I will not be thanking my torturers for that because they don't deserve any thanks. They shouldn't be torturing me to begin with. Now that that's out of the way, I want to talk about something that, something of a revelation. There have been a few revelations that have come up since my mother's death, and once again, rest in peace to her. But I was watching this video on TikTok about intrusive thinking, and I realized that I absolutely have had intrusive thoughts in the past. And not only did I realize that, I also realized that there's a very strong possibility that I could have OCD. Now, the reason why this is important is, like I said before, as a targeted individual, and especially as a Black targeted individual or a targeted individual of color, you are more likely to be medicated, diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and you are less likely to actually be diagnosed with the mental illnesses that you actually have. Because again, systemically, there's a genocide going on, and there's been a genocide going on. So as a Black person, you're more likely to be mistreated for your mental health diagnosis, medicated, sectioned, than your white counterparts. And even as a Black person, more than your person of color counterparts. When I was in Central Middlesex Hospital, when I was in that hospital for mentally unwell people, most of the people in there were people of color. Most of the people in there were people of color. That just goes to show there's a systemic element to the way that we are diagnosed. Remember, I've known at least 2 other people in my life who are white men. Now, one of them is my ex-partner. My ex-partner is Jewish, but he's a white Jewish, Ashkenazi, Slavic Jewish, right? He has been diagnosed with OCD. He has been diagnosed with specific illnesses, the same illnesses that I have, but one of us has been diagnosed for OCD and the other one hasn't. He's been diagnosed with OCD and Tourette's. I haven't been diagnosed with OCD. Another example is when I had like suicide attempts, when I attempted to take my own life. Once again, my white friend, a white friend that I had at the time, he was a bit younger than me. A white friend that I had at the time, he was able to get treatment after his suicide attempts. He was at a home treatment team, came to see him. After my suicide attempt, remember, I had overdosed on paracetamol and tried to drown myself in the bath. And, my gang stalkers would know because they were watching the whole thing unfolding with glee, I might add. So, after that, no home treatment team came to see me. There was even somebody else in the house whilst the suicide attempt was happening that called the ambulance and tried to have someone down there. So at least one of my housemates tried to see whether I was alive or not, right? So at least one person was trying to check up on me. But when it came to mental health, nobody came down to see me. There were no home treatment team. I was actually the one that called them and tried to set up an appointment. When I could not make that appointment because I was unwell due to the suicide attempt, they never got back to me. They never called me. The last time I heard from them after that phone call was when they sent me a letter saying that if I did not take this prescription or I did not take this medication, that they would section me. Like I said, white male counterpart never got that treatment. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The white male counterpart never got that treatment. I'll give you another example. There was another white person that I lived with in that supported housing that I told you about. Now, looking back, right, I'm pretty sure that person's a fucking target. There ain't no way in hell she's a perp. I've cussed her out. I've called her names because she kept accusing me of stealing when I wasn't stealing. And at the time, I was very hypersensitive to everything that was going on around me. But I swear to God, that woman's a TI. There ain't no way she isn't. She's way too honest. She's got way too much fucking integrity to be a goddamn perp, right? So, you know, I swear that woman's got to be a target. But even this white woman, who I'm quite convinced is a target, even she was diagnosed with a split in the brain. Now, the reason why I think she's a target is because even though the split in the brain was acknowledged, they bullshitted her. They bullshitted her and said that the only way to heal a split in the brain is to talk about what you're going through. They wanted to mine her for information to see how the split in the brain affected her, which means that split in the brain is not organic. It was caused. It was caused. Because if you're turning around saying that the white lady with the split in the brain needs to talk to somebody and that split will heal, what kind of fucking hokey bullshit is that? You operate on a split in the brain. You don't talk about it. So this poor woman, right, was blatantly lied to. This is why I think she was a TI. It's because she was blatantly lied to. And she was bullshitted with that false information given by medical professionals. So, for me, even as a TI, that white lady with the split in the brain, she was diagnosed with the split in the brain. They had a scan, they had a look at it. She has a split. And apparently a split in the brain can be caused by trauma. Bullshit. She was attacked. But even that white lady who I'm convinced is a target, she had her stuff diagnosed. I've had PMDD, evident PMDD, evident OCD, evident ADHD, evident Asperger's, evident BPD, evident complex PTSD, all of it, right? On top of fibroids, all of it. None of it diagnosed. The only thing diagnosed was the BPD. And even then I had to fight with them to diagnose me with BPD. It took God knows how many months of therapy for that to finally be acknowledged. So it just goes to show that systemic racism within medicine is absolutely a thing. And if people don't realize that, they're naive. And us black folk within our own black community, we've got a lot to fucking answer for. We've got a lot to fucking answer for, because what the hell are you doing talking about mad breed? Whilst there are people in our community full of mental illnesses that haven't been checked. Do you know how much easier our community would have it if we would actually take the time to learn about one another's mental illness rather than writing one another off as mad breed and letting it go? Do you know how much a stronger position we would be in now without that fucking foolishness? But no, because we feel the need to be superior and the need to compete with one another, now we are weaker and more vulnerable than ever to a literal genocide that is happening to everybody, but especially black people. We're especially vulnerable now because we can't keep our mouths shut and we can't do our research when it comes to mental health issues. And yes, I'm going to be harsh because this calls for harshness. Imagine me at my big age walking around with OCD and not realizing I fucking have it. That is an absolute travesty. But as much as I will call out my own black community for that bullshit, once again, this is systemic. You've got God knows how many black people walking around here with BPD, walking around here with anxiety, walking around with depression, having absolutely no idea. And truth be told, even if they went to the doctors and tried to solve the problem, like my dad's side of the family tried to do with me repeatedly, even when we go to the doctors and try to find out what's wrong, they do absolutely fuck all and they won't get anything diagnosed. So as much as people in my own community have a lot to answer for, again, all of this is systemic. It's been done for decades. all because human beings can't use common sense. And I've tried explaining this to my ex. I've tried explaining this to several other people. Oh no, you're exaggerating about racism. Am I? The amount of fucking... I could look to my own family and give you examples. My mum went out of her way not to put me in the mental health system. And it's not because she didn't want to help me. It's because she knew that the first thing that they would do with sick black people or black people who are unwell, medication sectioning. And that's it. That's why a lot of black people don't trust the doctors. That's why a lot of black people don't trust medical professionals. And once again, you know, now that trends have done a 180, now we're making fun of other black people who don't go to the doctor, not realizing the complexity and the nuance behind that shit. There is only like the slightest chance that you might be better off as a black person going to the doctor than not going to the doctor. Because when you follow the experts, you follow the money, and the money is not backing us. So we're not going to get correct diagnoses. We're not going to get properly treated. And this is not just about black people. This is about queer people too. This is about fucking, this is about queer people. This is about trans people. This is about TIs as well. TIs, targeted individuals especially, are not going to get any proper treatment. Because if there's an investment in literally destroying our bodies and causing specific injury to our bodies, exactly how many proper health diagnoses do we think we're going to get? How much proper treatment do we think we're going to get? Come on now. The whole point is to kill us. There's no way they're going to give us the right medications for the right illness. What is going to happen, which is what has been happening, is that we have become the sacrificial lambs for everyone else to benefit from. And when I say the word benefit, I do mean that fucking loosely. I mean it very fucking loosely, because the same people benefiting from the damage that we've taken to our bodies so they can walk around saying they've got this, they've got that, they've got the other, they are the ones that are next on the chopping block. Anyone who openly admits I have a mental illness, anybody who openly says I'm queer, there's nothing wrong with queerness, by the way. Anyone who openly says I'm queer, I'm trans, after us TIs and after us black folk, those are the ones that are next. So even after all the sacrifices that we have taken on through the damage of our bodies, through the torture of our bodies, anyone who identifies as mentally ill or any of those things, they're next. And I hate it. I fucking hate it. None of this should be happening. None of this should be happening. But it just goes to show the fact that I haven't been I'm 38 years old. I've only just now understood that I might have OCD after all the pain that my intrusive thoughts caused me, to the point of me literally trying to end my life twice in one day. Imagine how angry I feel finding out that all of that could have been prevented if I knew I had OCD. All of that could have been prevented. Lives could have been saved. My body could have been spared. Do you know how hard overdoses are on the body? Do you know how hard near-death experiences are on the fucking body? The amount of damage my body has taken because of wrongful diagnosis, deliberate wrongful diagnosis, deliberate attempts to drive me absolutely batty with draining, childish, mental health, mind tricks or whatever the fuck it is they're doing. The amount of damage that my body has taken and has still taken as a result of wrongful information about my mental health. The damage that this shit has done. And once again, of course, all these revelations will come out now that it doesn't fucking mean anything. Of course, these revelations will come out now that it doesn't mean anything. So to recap, I just found out that I have OCD. And the OCD is among a long list of things in me as a human being that has been undiagnosed. And it's the same with, You know, my relatives, it's the same with my mum and dad, especially. My mum had ADHD. My mum had ADHD. She was usually very heavily overstimulated. My dad has Asperger's, as far as I know. He hasn't been diagnosed either. And I think that he might have OCD too. But I don't know. I know the Asperger's I definitely know. The Asperger's I'm aware of. But, you know, he hasn't been diagnosed. Like, bare family members walking around undiagnosed to this day. I had an ex-boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend from when I was 16 years old. He was diagnosed with Asperger's. And that was fucking 22 years ago. I knew that guy. And he was diagnosed before any black person that I know was diagnosed with anything. Now, I'm not saying black people haven't been diagnosed. I'm just saying we're less likely to be diagnosed. And I'm basing that off of the experiences that I've had. Because people wrongly assume that I had paranoid schizophrenia when I didn't. I've never hallucinated in my life. And yet I've been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Where the fuck did they do that at? That's racism. On top of me being a TI. And then on top of that, other people of color, other TIs of color. There's one other TI of color that's been wrongfully diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia because of the mind control. Because of weapons that are easily researched and people can easily look into and choose not to. Given diabetes because of that wrongful diagnosis. There's been another black man who's been, I think he's been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. I'm not sure though. What I do know is that he was sectioned and he was given 8 times the medicated dosage that he actually needed. His name was Adam, I think. So even that among TIs, there is a stark difference between the treatment of white TIs and the treatment of black TIs. But this is where the privilege is a double-edged sword, because I didn't know exactly what was going on with me mentally and physically, but I knew what was causing the majority of my problems. It was electronic torture. And it was gang stalking, right? So I knew about that side because I'm not privileged, right? When you're not privileged, you know why something is happening to you. You just don't know exactly what. Now, this is where my ex came in, because my ex is white. He's a Slavic Jewish person, right? So my ex-boyfriend is Slavic Jewish. He knew what was wrong. And he was able to get it diagnosed and he was able to get it treated, even though, truth be told, it caused him a lot of pain. So he knew what was wrong with him, whereas I knew why things were wrong. Unfortunately, when you're in privilege, when you're a privileged person, you have the benefit of knowing exactly what's going on. But as a privileged person, the how and why is kept from you, and it's kept from you for a reason. The reason is that if you don't know everything, then you're unarmed and you're unprepared. You see, the way it works is that anybody who's marginalized, you know, it's weird, because if you know why something's happening, but you don't know exactly what's happening to you, that's more intuitive. And if you know what's happening to you, but you don't know why, that's more logical, right? So it's like the more logical people are more likely to be believed and listened to, whereas the more intuitive people are not likely to be listened to. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly how it is, but I'm saying that's how it appears to people. If you know why something is happening and how something is happening, then you come across as crazy, because it's an intuitive thing. It's perceived as an intuitive thing rather than something that's based on fact. But if you know what's happening to you, but you don't know why, then it seems more believable and it seems more logical. That's why privileged people are more likely to believe than we are. It's because of what information is being omitted. Now, when you get white people who know what's happening to them, not only know what's happening to them, but why, it's a double-edged sword, because then, you know, then their illnesses are believed, but they are not. At the same time, that additional visibility increases the chances of their illnesses being properly diagnosed, even if the root causes are not admitted to. And especially if you're a white male, if you're a healthy white male, or close to a healthy white male. So this is not a joke. This is not a joke thing. I'm just sorry that my mum had to die before I figured any of this out. Because I knew everything that I'm speaking about now, I already knew about and I've already spoken about. But it's in this particular arrangement, it's in this particular reasoning that, it's the type of reasoning that is new to me. It's not the information, but it's the type of reasoning that is new to me. Because once again, I knew how and why. I didn't know the what. Now I know both. So it's difficult. It's difficult because I knew my OCD was down to the torture. I knew my PTSD was down to the torture. I knew my BPD was down to the torture. I knew my PMDD was down to the torture. But a lot of these illnesses that I have, I didn't even know I had. So, and the reason for that is, again, systemic racism. People just do not understand how serious this shit is. Like, people think that always trying to keep the black man down and like, oh, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. It's just oversensitive. No, motherfucker. It's not craziness or oversensitivity. It is reality. And again, my own black people who have willingly become perps and have a lot to answer for while they're over there complaining about racism. What are you doing to the most vulnerable people in your society? And the same goes for every race out there. Don't claim that you're proud of who you are whilst you're fucking stabbing the most vulnerable people in your community in the front and in the back. Don't fucking do it. If you are complaining about racism and yet you're going around talking about mad breed and you're going around saying that queer people should be killed and you're going around fucking, wearing your so-called neurotypical badge as a badge of honor without understanding the context of everything that you're talking about, if you go around doing that, don't fucking complain about racism. Don't fucking complain about racism. If I don't care what race of people you belong to, black, white, brown, I don't care what ethnicity you come from, if you do not respect the vulnerable people within your society, then I'm going to need you to shut the fuck up about racism. I'm going to need you to shut the fuck up about classism. I'm going to need you to shut the fuck up about sexism. I'm going to need you to shut the fuck up about queer phobia, fat phobia, all of it. Shut the fuck up. Because you have neither the right nor the reason to complain. And when it comes to perps that target people like me, when it comes to the perps, this especially goes to you. You have no right or reason to complain. You are complicit in your own genocide. You chose to be complicit in your own genocide so that you could be comfortable. I don't want to hear nothing from you. I don't want to hear nothing from you. Doesn't matter what race you belong to, you are a sellout to your own culture and the human race. Sit down, shut the fuck up. You have no reason, no right to cry, no right to complain. This is something you brought on yourselves. About you got people walking around here undiagnosed to their deaths. The fuck? This is your fault. You are to blame, so don't be out here talking about, no, don't do it. Do not do it. And I don't care how many excuses you want to give yourselves. Oh, I was busy. I had children to look at. No, fuck you. Fuck you. You are the reason why people are dying. And I know because I almost died off the back of undiagnosed illnesses. I almost died off the back of that shit. God knows how many other people have been killed because you wanted to feel superior to someone else, because you knew you lost the survival of the fittest contest a long time ago. And the only thing you had left to contribute was shitting all over people who are more vulnerable than you. Don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from you. I don't want to hear it from you. You got people like me walking around are diagnosed because you want to feel superior. You got people like that poor white lady with the split in the brain walking around with the split in the brain unoperated on. What the Don't talk to me. Don't fucking do it. Don't talk to me. Do not fucking talk to me about how unfair this world is when you are complicit in it. Shut the fuck up. Now, if you've made it to the end of this video, hang on. What was I going to say? There's something that I need to say. My intuition is talking to me. So basically this video was about systemic racism and the medical profession and how that ties into the targeted individual community. If I see any links, then I'll link them. But again, you just have to use your common sense. What else? Yeah. I've got to, no. It's like my intuition just does this thing where it's trying to remember, if that makes sense. That's what my brain's trying to do. Thanks, Havana syndrome. Yeah, so Havana syndrome. It can see like the different ways that illnesses can be synthesized is absolutely wild. And that's just from harming the brain and nervous system. We can't even go into all the diseases that have already been picked up through DNA. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to talk to you about. There was this news article that talked about DNA from 23andMe being used for bioweapons. That's a misdirect. That's a misdirect. I said on my Facebook that was a misdirect. Think about the amount of blood tests that you've taken. Remember, if you're going to follow the experts, you've got to follow the money. Most of the money comes from pharmaceutical industries. It comes from military funding. So whatever blood tests you get, whatever swabs you've been taking, it goes back to the military. It goes back to the pharmaceutical companies in some capacity. And they will take that and use that in order to kill as many people as they possibly can, and preferably people who are already a threat. We're talking about decades in the making. 23andMe ain't got shit to do with this. The most that 23andMe will do with the information with regards to DNA is marketing. It's not that they can't hand over the information to the government. That's not what I'm saying. But if it's got anything to do with genocide, if it's got anything to do with bioweaponry, then that's our government. That is multiple governments globally trying to compete with each other as to who they can kill off, how many people they can kill off. It's got everything to do with that, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with 23andMe. 23andMe are not that fucking powerful. All the genocide and using our DNA to do it, all of that is happening in-house, and it's been happening in-house for decades. They already have the genetic makeup of God knows how many people globally. It's gotten to the point now where they have unique signatures that can create any kind of illness in the body, including sickle cell, like my mum had. So now I'm sitting here asking questions as to whether or not the sickle cell was actually caused by my granddad and grandma, or if it was actually, put into my mum somehow as a child. Because remember the Tuskegee experiments, they're not above putting illnesses into black people or into anybody. So it kind of makes me think the chronic asthma my dad had, he didn't have it until he was 3. So it just makes me question that all these illnesses and diseases that come up, how did they come about? How did they really come about? Because we don't just have electronic warfare, we also have bioweaponry that we've been aware of since the 1920s, at least. So it just really begs the question, You know, if various biological illnesses can be caused, genetic illnesses can be caused, mental illnesses can be caused, they can be easily manufactured and placed inside somebody's body and attached to their DNA. If all of this can easily happen, then it really makes you question how many of us are genuinely sick rather than having it synthesized. And the worst part is that it doesn't have to just stop with one person. It can be a generational curse that is inherited, caused exactly by the same system that has been using our DNA to weaponize against us. You know, you have to remember, you got a lot of healthy, wealthy people out here dying off. Like, what's going on? What's going on? Why are they dying off if it's not DNA being used as bioweapons? If it's not that, then why are they dying off like flies? You got healthy people dying like flies. What's going on? It's got to be the use of DNA and electronic weaponry. It's got to be attacks on the nervous system and the brain, and especially the blood-brain barrier. There is no way, like you're going to have advanced bioweaponry and advanced energetic weaponry for decades and you're not going to test it out. There's no fucking way. And that could be another reason why specific illnesses are not diagnosed in the most vulnerable and marginalized people. It's because the vulnerable and marginalized people, again, they know how and why, they just don't know the what. And as long as they don't know the what, it's easy to label them as crazy. It's easy to label them as crazy. It's easy to label them as not knowing what they're doing. And like I said before, if you're black and you're involved in this, shut up. If you're white and you're involved in this, shut up. White and poor and you're involved in this, shut the fuck up. If you're white and poor, shut the fuck up. If you're brown, regardless of class, shut the fuck up. Nobody's trying to hear you. If you've been involved in gang stalking, shut the fuck up. No one wants to hear you. Because it's not like you can suddenly take back everything that you've done and suddenly take back everything, you know, or all the shit that you've landed your own bloodlines in. It's not like you can do that. Just sit down and shut up. Do your jobs. That's all you have left. That's all you have left. Now, I'm fortunate. I consider myself blessed. I've been through a lot of pain as a targeted individual. That pain will grow. Because I'm getting older and I'm becoming more emotionally resilient, that pain will grow. But I am very, very grateful to be a targeted individual. Because the gift that I've been given is a gift of truth. And it's an important gift to have, to be on the side of truth. And I never realized that until now. There are so many things that I have blamed myself for. So many things that, you know, were written off as personality traits. Like black folk, we like to roast each other for being dramatic. Oh, we're so dramatic. That's PTSD. That is generation upon generations of PTSD inflicted upon us through slavery and inflicted upon each other for the same reason. You know, all the stuff about, you know, it's PTSD, undiagnosed, untreated, generations of it. All the things that we celebrate as stalwarts of black culture, you know, some of the things that we celebrate within our culture is actually some of the worst parts of us that we celebrate. That is actually a legacy of untreated trauma and untreated mental health issues. Now, I'm not saying every black person has mental health issues, but I'm just saying that a lot of the things that we think are integral to our culture, a lot of the things that we think are integral to ourselves as people, they're not us. They're our illnesses. My a tendency to be obsessive, my tendency to overthink things, not a personality trait. I thought it was, it's not. My tendency to to feel things on a deep-seated level. That was my ADHD and my BPD. That was not me. I thought it was. My tendency to be angry every time I have my period, I knew there was something wrong there. But once again, the doctors did not acknowledge it. They got a lot to answer for. All of these things that I thought were personality traits weren't. And unfortunately, because these things had not been treated, these things had not been sorted out, other people got hurt as well because of me. That is the damage that has been left by lack of diagnosis and lack of proper care. It leads to a transference of hurt. It leads to other people getting hurt that should not be getting hurt. People think that, oh, you know, systemic racism, it just hurts. It just hurts us. That's why nobody cares. Nobody cares about systemic racism because, truth be told, people think that it's only black people or, at a push, brown people who get hurt. That's why people don't care about systemic racism. If there was any inkling that it might be hurting white people, that's when they sit up and pay attention. But it's not. It's only affecting us. But what people don't understand is the effects of systemic racism, the effects of undiagnosed illnesses, how people walking around with undiagnosed illnesses can hurt other people. Sometimes realizing it, sometimes not realizing it. Because when you know how and why you're being hurt, but you don't know what kind of hurt you've been left with, all you're left with is anger, which can cause destruction or self-destruction. So the amount of damage that undiagnosed, you know, using diagnosis, weaponizing it to keep people silent about crimes that they're not supposed to be suffering, it leads to consequences for everybody, not just the people that you're targeting. But then again, the people who targeted us, whether you're TI, whether you're a black person, whether you're a brown person, whether you're a woman, whether you're queer, the people who targeted the vulnerable and marginalized in society, the people who target the fringes, they already knew that when we were targeted, it would hurt other people as well. But this is another thing that they knew. It would hurt other people to a lesser extent. So in their mind, it's a victimless crime. Because people with OCD are actually among the least likely to hurt another person. Because of intrusive thoughts, not because of intrusive thoughts, not in spite of them. But people still end up hurt. People still end up hurt. There is no victimless crime here. And if not physically, definitely emotionally. All this attack, you know, with vulnerable people, all this attack, all it does is leave a legacy of hurt that nobody can climb up out of. And that people need to be dependent upon in order to function. Yeah. The amount of lives that could have been saved if we'd have just been diagnosed. The fortunate thing about me is that I have this primal wisdom inside of me that keeps me alive in spite of everything that I've tried to do to myself. It's kept me alive. And it's because of that I was able to stumble upon the fact that I might have OCD at 38 at my fucking big age. But I would never have found that out if I wasn't detached in some way. I might never have found this out. So I implore everyone to study their psychology, to study out how their minds work, and to realize that certain traits that you have might not be you. It might not be your personality. It might just be the illness. Your personality lies in how you respond to the illnesses. That's where your personality is. It's not in the illnesses themselves. The illnesses are not you. They don't make you who you are. They can conceal them. They can camouflage them. But they are not you. I implore everybody to read and research into the psychological aspects of life, because it's those things and your health that are the most important and yet the most overlooked. And once again, that's for a reason. Now I gotta go. And just in case you're wondering, yes, electronic weapons have been fired in my head and in my body this whole time. But again, like I said before, because I know what they're going to do to me, I'm not about to let this shit ride without saying something. And that's how it's going to be. If my fellow TIs have made it this far, please let me know how you guys are doing. I always want to know. I always want to hear it. And yeah, I've been Fabienne Deacon, aka Empress Justice. I love you guys very much. Peace and blessings. Bye-bye.